Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, family members. Family members, because medical technology sector is no more fragmented. We are one family. AMTZ is only a representation of that family. And it is all of you that makes the family strong, glorious, and progressive. So, welcome to all of you. I am told that the Honorable Union Minister is still in the cabinet meeting. He is expected towards the end of the program, hopefully. But nevertheless, my sincere thanks to Mr. Gurmit Chugh and Mr. Rajiv Nath for having hosted this event. In fact, it was their idea to host an event like this because this event is about a book which is a journey. A journey in which all of us have walked together, a journey in which all of us have walked despite many challenges, and a journey in which all of us have showcased brilliance and stewardship in a sector which was absolutely import dependent. So thank you for being champions and leaders all through this journey. I am expected to answer a lot of questions. Mr. Gurmeet, our good friend, does that to me in many of the government meetings as well. A large number of questions on the sector, on the policies and technicalities are thrown upon by him. I am used to it, Mr. Gurmeet, by now. Mr. Rajiv Nath always helps me finding the right answers. So I wish to tell Gurmeet that I am not alone. We will be answering a lot of his questions. And therefore, I will postpone a lot of what I have to say for that part of the session. I request Rimi back on stage to bring the books so that we can unveil it. And my special thanks to all of you for being here today. It is our pleasure and blessing to have all of you amidst us and with us all through. Thank you, Rimi, and over to you back. Welcome to my very special colleagues, Mrs. Poonamji, who has come all the way from Andhra Pradesh, Mr. Rajiv Nath, who is rarely seen in his own factory because he is always busy carrying the flag of the Industry Association, and Gurmeet ji, who actually postponed his tour to the US business tour just for this event and made large number of changes to make sure that this day is special. Thanks to all three of you. And Rimi, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, the much awaited thing and the reason that we all are here, the book reveal of Made in Lockdown. So, I would request our guest and the books to be on dais so that we can reveal. So, we all can have a copy and we can, at one go, we all can open it. And please, a big round of applause while we do this. Who tears it first? Yay! The author won it.
It is backed by Gurmit Singh Chugh and they specialize in part 1 and STEM. So it shows the good quality packing our industry.
Yes. So a big round of applause for the packaging. So you all can avail a copy outside. So whoever interested or not interested, please take a copy from outside. There's a desk. Thank you. Thank you. So moving to the next, we will have excerpts and interview by MD and founder of Translumina Therapeutics and joint coordinator AI-Med Sri Gurmit Singh Chugh interviewing Dr. Sharma on the book. Yeah, rest of our guests can move back to the sofas. This interview will unveil a lot of information and an idea for you also. Like, what are the things like is awaiting in the book.
So, good afternoon, everyone, once again. And, generally what happens is whenever you participate in any kind of such programs, you must, they say, give the disclosures of any conflict of interest. And here, the caveat is that it's rather, instead of conflict of interest, it will add to the credibility of my comments that we just around 2 months back became a part of AMTZ. We are starting our heart wall manufacturing facility in AMTZ. And the importance is not about starting, it's about where we were planning and why did we move. So I have two facilities in Dehradun, and the third one was absolutely an adjacent plot. So it was like where we could have integrated into one large facility. So that was the option. And by the end, I'll tell you the reasons that why we moved from there instead of having the facility adjacent to our current facility and went to AMTZ to start our third facility. So while I discuss this, a lot of these things will get revealed that why we took that decision. And Jitendra ji, for me, is not only just a friend, but a guide and philosopher. In various meetings, his comments have been extremely encouraging, and especially for people who have a vision of creating something good in India. So, Jitendra ji, with all my humility, I'll try to keep my questions very brief, but it's important for the audience to really learn today, and I'm sure that a lot of them will be motivated to live a part of the journey which you have led. So, to begin with, Jitendra ji, if I start talking about your credentials, they go on and on and on. So everybody, each one of us knows that he's the CEO of AMTZ, which is Asia's first medical device park. While we discuss later that how it all came up, he's the founder and the executive director of Kalam Institute of Health, member secretary of National Devices Promotional Council, and on and on. I'll stop there. In addition, he is postgraduate in 3 subjects. He is double PhD and triple PhD. Oh, he's triple. So doctor, and doctor. He's triple PhD. Came from a very, very humble background. I mean, in fact, he did his graduation in Puttaparthi. Some of you may know that this institute is known for the humility and the kind of values they imbibe in students. And so the first introduction was when me and Rajiv used to participate in these government meetings, and here we had a representative of the government who would always criticize governments. He will criticize Babudam, he will criticize the bureaucratic process while sitting with his fellow colleagues. And later, with government's assistance, created such a large initiative which is unparalleled. So Jitendra ji, please decode this enigma for the crowd. Who is Dr. Jitendra Sharma? What is his real personality? So on one side, you have extremely humble, you are accessible, you are approachable. You are from academics. I think from a perspective of CEOs, you give a run of money for people who are running companies. So which one of you is the real identity of you?
So I think whatever I am is just my role. It's not me, because all of us are the same, truly speaking. We have different roles. We play them to the best possible ability that nature and life has bestowed on us. But as a professional, I am a person in whom perhaps you can depend on putting a task or an ask which is beneficial to all, your partners, stakeholders, consumers, most importantly patients, and trust that I will put in my best to achieve it. Not just for myself, but for everyone around. So I am just a dependable healthcare worker on whom, if you can trust, I consider that as my reward.
And always they say there is a moment of awakening, whether it happens in your school, in your college, in your professional. So what was that moment for you when you decided that from, let's say, from academics to you did a lot of social health in your initial years, and then to create such a large vision. So what was your moment of awakening? I mean, what really drove you to do what you did?
So I wouldn't say it is just a moment. They were series of reasons and episodes that perhaps and I'll try to now get into the book. In the book also, you would see that I have described health as a temple or a university with 5 pillars. Pillar 1 is the infrastructure, which is never in our control because infrastructural costs are decided by real estate business. The second pillar is human resource because that's also never in our control because none of us would like to get paid lesser and lesser, which means essentially we will never have full control on that cost. The third is pharmaceuticals, which is something India has championed already to a great extent. The fourth is the technology, is the health policy, which means how we reimburse care of people, patients, insurance, and so on. And the fifth is medical technology. Now, I would go back to a small chance meeting with Mr. Rajiv Nath. WHO Global Forum was being hosted in 2013. I did not know Rajiv Nath because I was in Geneva. Rajiv Nath ji and me, we met accidentally on the eve of a WHO Global Forum in 2013 in November. And he told me that India does not have a department of medical technology, and I was working for WHO at that time in medical technology department. And I think many of those chance meetings with people who believe in something grand for the country and not just for themselves. When you go to Canada or Germany or Australia and you see the benchmark infrastructure, which welcomes industry, which works with patients, which integrates value chain of care, I think these were a set of events which encouraged me to come back to India, and I came back in 2012. I did not meet Mr. Rajiv Nath for almost a year until we met in Geneva, and eventually by 2015 we realized that India does not need big talks; it needs one big demonstration. So when it comes to medical technology, there might be many champions, many institutions, but there is no single institution, there was no single institution which could bring everyone together, ask their needs, fulfill it at one place, and demonstrate that all of us together is much, much greater than the addition of all of us. So 1 plus 1 is far more greater than equal to 2. And I think I wouldn't say a moment of awakening, I would say a series of realization that all of us had together to build something great for India.
Great, well said. And if you go through the book, because I had to literally, when I was reading this, and I read it once, and then I knew that I have to talk a little bit about it, so I read it twice. But while I was reading it twice, I realized I have to read it thrice and also the fourth time. The reason was that a couple of these things are so unbelievable. So the book is divided into 8 chapters, very catchy headings, and at the same time, every topic is, I would say, a small management training. So I'll go to the first one, the Amar Akbar and Anthony, the way it starts, and I'll just read that issue, which is right now really creating a lot of issues in India for us in the medical device industry. And Dr. Sharma, you're right that despite a booming pharmaceutical industry serving nearly the entire globe with affordable medicines, India has remained import dependent to the extent of over 80% in medical devices, with over 95% in advanced technological segments such as MRIs and CT scanners. And then you also say that it would not be an exaggeration to say that the medical device sector remained the neglected orphan sector of the Indian healthcare ecosystem over the decades. This is page 13. So what do you think would have led to this? Where did India go wrong in the last 15 years?
So it's not last 15 years. It is last 40 years. Because core medical technology development and deployment started in 1980s, late 1780s, where Massachusetts Institute of Technology and many others in the world started to build dialysis machine, heart lung machines, pacemakers, and so on. Now, what we could have done in these 40 years that we did not do? Number one, and I take into account with all humility medical technology leaders that are here, that have been in this business for decades. What we could have done better? I think number one, India never had a department of medical technology. Never. It's only in 2015 or so that Department of Pharmaceuticals was given the added responsibility of medical devices. Now, despite knowing the fact that most of the business happens in industry and not in government, absence of a department leads to lot of policy incoherence. It leads to lot of gaps in taking the feedback of industry and taking it forward. The second thing that didn't happen, which should have happened, was faster introduction of regulation. Now, I see Mr. K.L. Sharma here. He was when Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Under his leadership, we had the medical devices rules that came up at that time, which is a commendable task, but we were only 30 years late. We needed those rules in 1990s when the economy was opened up, right? We did not have a governance regulatory structure for medical devices, which was the second missing link. The third missing link, which is also documented in book, in the book, was critical infrastructure. We did not have enough testing labs. We did not have enough molding centers. We did not have enough biomaterial characterization centers, which is never done by an industry anywhere in the world. It's done by a non-industry body or a government, such that many industries use this infrastructure together. And the fourth thing, and the last thing that perhaps we should have done, particularly as you mentioned MRI, and this is a live example. Thankfully, this is not the book of a vision which we think we should achieve. This is a book of a factual story that we have already achieved. And therefore, it is not a dream. It is a reality which we have built. The fourth thing which did not happen is that large, high-cost components that are used in medical technology. Now, you take an example of MRI. Nobody in Southeast Asia makes a superconducting magnet for an MRI. No one. When nobody makes a magnet for an MRI, each magnet weighs about 10 tons. You are forcing your country to import it. Now, when you start making that magnet, what happens? AMTZ started the R&D and production center for MRI superconducting magnet of 1.5 Tesla each. We commenced that facility. Today, we have 2 MRI manufacturers in the zone. Why did the 2 MRI manufacturers, Times Medical and Sequoia, came from outside India to set up MRI manufacturing in the zone? Because they got superconducting magnet in the zone. I think absence of a department, absence of regulatory framework, absence of common scientific infrastructure, and absence of core critical high-cost components is what didn't happen for last 40 years, because of which our industry did not move forward. Thankfully, with support of everyone, we have been able to put forward that infrastructure. Almost 18 different kinds of facilities that I have documented in the book required for medical devices. If there is one place globally where all of them exist, it is at AMTZ. And that is true service to industry is what I believe.
And I think then he moved to the chapters, the idea of conceptualizing AMTZ. And I'll quote the way the idea came to the mind and why did AMTZ is what it is today. So you write here that an idea for which no piecemeal and disjointed solutions could work. The development of a robust homegrown medical device sector requires an integrative, amalgamative, and innovative approach. The creation of a nest or a few nests which could truly nurture the development of products, provide a base for rigorous product testing in complex laboratories, a catalyst hub which could play the part of friend and guide to manufacturers, industry, and entrepreneurs. And then you also, I think that was a clue I heard earlier for Amazon, which you said that the AMTZ, you also wanted to start from the A to Z of medical devices. So that's pretty innovative. So I think when you go through this, on one side, it gives you a vision. But on the other side, it looks sometimes too high to achieve. And this is where you're also right in page number 30, that it was then that I decided to map the stumbling blocks of entry barriers for indigenous medical device manufacturing to begin with. I found the absence of testing infrastructure, prototyping facilities, supply chain solutions to medical devices, and also that we lacked an institution where research and development, testing and validation, component production and manufacturing all happen in a single ecosystem or cluster. And this is where I found on my vision, and we set off to make further plan to create what would become later the MedTech capital of India. Very inspiring. But right now, I mean, for a lot of my younger colleagues here and the ones who are living an entrepreneur journey, it's too big a vision. So what inspired you and what gave you the confidence that yes, it's doable?
So it's a ship we built while sailing, which means, honestly speaking, we did not know whether we'll end up building the ship or we'll end up drowning. And therefore, I have to be honest, there was no surety of anything. But you keep walking even in the dark when you are not sure, because you know you are walking in the right direction. If not in the right direction, at least with the right conscience. Because conscience can never cheat you. Even your mind can fool you, but your conscience can't fool you. And therefore, if there is one thing I would like to mention to everyone, including readers and entrepreneurs, is that at every step of building, making, operating, and progressing AMTZ, there has been true, sincere effort from the conscience. I never thought we will end up doing it. I never thought we will we'll end up doing it this big. But every step, every effort was made in the truest of strength and sincerity. Now, there are many things in the book which has happened, building things in record time. These are also part of good project management. Now, when you have selflessness coming into the project, when you have lot of mapping of the needs of your friends and colleagues, then you end up achieving good project management. I'll just give you one example. I think Involution's team is here. Now, they have set up a cardiac balloon catheter facility at AMTZ, right? Many of the raw materials of that product actually come from outside India. What do? We don't end up watching them struggling to import it. We take their raw material, give it to somebody like Mr. Satish, who is from Stanley Black & Decker, a $22 billion firm, which also has 2 plants at AMTZ. We do a Raman spectroscopy, find out the density of materials, find out the composition of materials in in-house labs at AMTZ. We give it to Stanley Black & Decker to map up indigenous local supply chain. Now, the idea is not just to ask Involutions to invest in AMTZ to make. The idea is to help Involutions crack it end to end. And I believe that if public sector can play a role of not just inviting private sector, but working with them through and through, breaking their bottlenecks, we will be truly successful as partners.
Well, I think I would assume that might be the game changer to an extent, because during this time, I think from the time the AMTZ started till I think in the last 5 years, I must say, if not every state, at least 10 states have already announced the medical device parks. And I think a couple of these states, I know about Uttarakhand, because this is where, because our facilities are in Uttarakhand, and they invited Dr. Sharma to come there and help them do create this kind of medical device parks, because so far the parks would have meant a piece of land. Somebody would announce a piece of land, a piece of barren land, and would announce that this is a med device park, and you come and produce there, without realizing that why would somebody come there to produce? Why would somebody like Rajiv will not leave? Why would he leave Faridabad for a setup which has been established over 50 years and go to a new land here in a different state to set up a facility? And I think this is where I would say Dr. Sharma cracked the code. And this is where I also come to the most important, interesting chapter, which he writes as that if you build, they will come. I think this I would say is the game changer. Who comes first? Do the facilities come first, or do the companies come first? And I congratulate you for building the code. And this is what you also write. If you build it well, they will come. This is a famous line from the 1989 movie Field of Dreams. For the right occupants to come, the right facilities need to be built. And while and then you say that the whole concept of AMTZ rested on the principle that if scientific infrastructure at par with the best in the world could be made available to our entrepreneurs, it would help them leapfrog into the orbit of complex science and product development. Now, this is what he writes, and I think this is something which was the philosophy, and what he ended up creating. And guys, it's hard to believe it. There are 18 different centers, which he says is the jewel of the crowns of AMTZ. Just for the paucity of time, maybe I'll not name all the 18, but just to give you an example, ADIT, Center for 3D Bioprinting, Biome, Center for Biomaterial Testing, Electra, Center for EMI, EMC and Electrical Safety, Decibel, Center for Acoustics and Wireless Testing, and the list goes on and on. Now, Dr. Sharma, I mean, first of all, this is unbelievable. These are like creating 18 institutions within one institution. Now, this is also something where I read later that there were also some critics who said that these institutions, like if you talk about, nowadays we watch this web series of Rocket Boys where it's about Dr. Sarabhai, and he talks about that he inaugurated, I think he built up 17 institutions over the entire lifetime, because it takes time to build an institution. Now, while you were doing so, on one side, they all are, I mean, unbelievable. So, wouldn't somebody criticize to you that do you really had the bandwidth to invest in all of them to make them world class? But at the same time, the people like us who are from the medical device manufacturing would say that at least you would have started, at least something has started. So, how would you deal these two contrarian views?
So there are three things. This is a very difficult question. If this would have been Kaun Banega Karodpati, I would have called Mr. Rajiv Nath phone a friend to have a help. But frankly speaking, there are three parts to this answer. Part one. See, sometimes we are too cruel in our expectations from industry. I'll give you a small example. Most of you would have had lunch, right? When we give you lunch, we expect we will give you an entire buffet. What if chapati is missing? Will that lunch be called complete? If a lunch cannot be complete if with a missing chapati or rice, how do we expect industry to come and give business and feed mouths of 5,000 people if facilities are not full and complete? How can I give you just 2 facilities or a packaging center and expect you to feed 5,000 people in your factory and produce world-class goods for the whole global market? We have to give complete basket to industry. There is nothing called half class. Because you are not paying half salary to your people. You are not paying half product to your customer. You are not giving half surgical instrument to your hospital. You are giving full, you should get full. Point number 2. Why would somebody like Mr. Rajiv Nath leave Faridabad? He should not leave Faridabad. In Faridabad, he is serving the Mother India as much as he would serve from Visakhapatnam. This idea of snatching investors from one state to another is wrong. They must be supported where they are because they are serving the country. But states and enterprises must positively compete in giving them the best facility. And therefore, we actually truly have never asked anyone to uproot their business from somewhere and come. We have only asked them, requested them to add on to their existing business. The reason is that when petroleum and natural gas is needed, say in a nitrile glove manufacturing facility, again a live example from AMTZ. Entire COVID management uses nitrile glove, the blue color gloves. India does not make a single nitrile glove in the country. We had a huge round of encouragement for vaccines. We ended up developing it. Did we have enough encouragement for nitrile gloves? No. Entire COVID has been managed with gloves imported from Malaysia and elsewhere. Why? Entire airline industry uses nitrile glove because nitrile glove, unlike latex glove which are white in color, are screen friendly. Entire cardiac surgery uses nitrile glove. There is not a single manufacturer in India. Now we encouraged a manufacturer in India to produce at AMTZ nitrile glove. They need an PNG gas bunker. Large number of manufacturers use petroleum and natural gas or LPG, and we very conveniently expect the manufacturer to tie up with HPCL or Indian Oil Limited to set up a gas bunker. It is none of their business to set up a gas bunker. What we did, we tied up with IOCL and set up a PNG station, an entire PNG cylinder station at AMTZ to serve the needs of the manufacturers. And therefore, you have to keep identifying what manufacturers need and run to fulfill them rather than passing on the burden to them. And my third portion of question, the IMED is a hugely positive association, positive-minded association. But it is an association of 600 plus people, 600 plus institutions, organization, companies. Now, Indian medical devices sector is pretty small. For it to increase, there are two ways. One, you increase the size of these institutional members, the companies who are already producing medical devices. And the second way is bring in new people. Only then our family will become strong if family will increase. I am giving an example of Mr. Maninder Singh here. I am not sure if he is in the audience. He operates, here, there he is. He operates a company called Lotus Wireless, which has nothing to do with medical devices. Nothing. As in his words, he was in medical Shunya Bate Sannata. That's his language in which he described his knowledge in medical technology. They make control panels, they make wireless devices, they work for railways. We worked with them, inspired their company and their leadership to enter into medical technology. Today, he produced over 200 crore worth of ventilators that were used in COVID management. Not because he didn't have a competent team, not because he lacked knowledge. He lacked partnership, he lacked a friend, an institutional friend who can work with him to crack medical products. And therefore, so long as we look forward to the needs that are lacking in industry and invest in fulfilling them, and so long as we inspire new people to enter this industry, so long as we inspire competent institutions to enter into this industry, we can only grow stronger and stronger.
Great, thank you.
Sorry for the long answer.
No. I think each word which you said is worth it, and so much of your journey also cannot be summarized in 30 minutes. So, it's good that while you are explaining us the events, you are also giving us the context, because that's more important sometimes to, understand an individual. And then I move to this chapter of yours, which you have written as the outcome of today's meeting is discovering this man. And when and then I said Kalam Institute of Healthcare Technology at 45,000 feet. Now, interestingly, I think the issue which you brought up is something personally for me as a high-end medical device manufacturer in the country since last 11 years, which I am facing about exactly the things you mentioned here, but I'll read it first, that what were the issues you solved for. And in one of these meetings where he says, sharing my perspective on the indigenization of the medical technology sector, I only mentioned to one of the committee which was there, that every medical technology product is complex in its entirety. When we break down into product into components, we are left with two distinct categories. Category 1 components are sector agnostic and readily available in India because of their applications in other sectors, like simple electronics. The second set of components is very specialized and specific to the medical device sector, such as oxygen sensors. And what I proposed in the meeting was to create a knowledge document that established the linkages between medical devices that were not made in the country at that time and link them to the critical components that were also not manufactured locally. So that was one issue. And the second point, I think, which is very, very important, and you write here that the second point that I put forward was that while academic and research institutions do valuable research, their research generally stays within the campus, or at most in scientific papers. Suppose we were to create an aggregator for ready-to-use technology and an e-auction portal for the outcomes of research, In that case, they should be funneled into the industry by the transaction on the e-marketplace. The industry would greatly benefit from the knowledge available in the academic institutions. The institution would get the cost of research reimbursed by the sale of prototypes or associated technology transfer. And I also tell you the reason why I say so. We have been working with various ITs now for our new technologies. And when I go and have an interaction there once in a while, we had this Stanford School of Design and All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and I go there once in a year to interact with the students. And one thing which Dr. Jitendra Sharma, I always say that they are overwhelming association with just creating patents, and their inability to understand that these patents, if they don't see the light of the day, and if it is not making the life of a poor man better, it's not worth it. So, Kalam Institute of Health Technology was an answer to this issue. So, what was the idea when you were conceiving it, and where is it today?
So again, a question very close to my heart. Firstly, in that meeting, there were only big things being discussed by big academicians. And after some time, after the cup of coffee that you are served is over, you really tend to get frustrated because now there is nothing more to look forward to. The coffee is also over. And the meeting is chaired by somebody very senior, so you really don't know what to do, and you start scratching your head, where are we going? So, we realize that, and I'll take an example of a simple syringe. Now, we can make syringe because we have very honest, credible industry leaders doing it for ages. But are we really expecting that enterprise to do R&D work on 316 L grade steel required for needles? Is it their job? Because if somebody does not do this job of proper R&D, these enterprises would be forced to import a part of their component from elsewhere. And then we will coax them in local value addition and so on. But the fact is, our academic culture is not very industry friendly. It has, so if you look at many of the innovations globally, a large number of those innovations come from universities. In our country, universities produce knowledge, patent, publish. The industry has its own in-house R&D team that works on product development. Now, this is somewhere has to be merged, and that's the role Kalam Institute is playing. The second component is technology transfer. We keep hearing this name, but technology transfer leads to a lot of financial and legal technicalities, which neither universities are ready to handle or are able to handle, nor are the industry getting a fair chance to buy these technologies from industry at a fair price. And therefore, we created this e-auction portal, which is running very well, particularly for startups who are able to sell their technology, to ensure that what is the knowledge and the prototypes that are generated in industry is easily transferred to industry through the e-auction portal. But let me tell you that that night I had a sudden call from Geneva to attend a WHO meeting. I took a flight which was at 1:30 in the night, and I was really not getting any sleep. I had a colleague sitting next to me, and when I discussed all this, I realized that as much as we can put this in the minutes of the meeting, these minutes of the meeting are left to people to adhere to or not to adhere to. This needs an institution. So as I have written in the book, I borrowed some paper napkins from the cabin crew, and I started documenting the departments we will build. When I came back from Geneva, it was Diwali evening. There was pujas going on in every home, including at my home. I used to be in Delhi at that time. And my family members were waiting to start Diwali puja, and I was busy completing the document. It was on a Diwali eve that the complete architecture of Kalam Institute of Health Technology that was completed. Next day morning, I presented it to ministry. The ministry did not take it up at that time as progressively as I would have liked. In fact, when I proposed it to be named after Dr. Kalam, I actually got a very cold response, surprisingly, that the names can be decided later. And I wouldn't name those individuals, but then I thought that if an institution of this kind has to be set up, it has to be in the name of Dr. Kalam. And whether we get a good response or not, we must do what we should do. And therefore, when I moved back to Andhra Pradesh to set up Kalam AMTZ, I proposed Kalam Institute to Professor Vijay Raghavan, who was at that time in the meeting when I had discussed this. Professor Vijay Raghavan was very kind enough to process the project, sanction the funds, initial funds of 2 crores. The government of Andhra Pradesh, at that time, the secretary of the concerned department was Dr. Poonamji, who is here today. We took the permission of the government, set up the institutions, we created the governing body, we used the good offices of Dr. Vijay Raghavan and Dr. Renu Sarup to actually get the project funding, had industry for the first time, Mr. Rajiv Nath, on the board of the governing body of Kalam Institute and began the institute.
Very well said. And there's also a great mention that sometimes it's about discovering an idea and sometimes it's about discovering a man. And this is where you write that the meeting ended, and especially with your, I would say, mentor, Professor Vijay Raghavan, the outcome of today's meeting is discovering this man. Very well said. Because this is where, things transform and people start now believing you, they start adding credibility to your words.
That's his kindness. Yeah. That is kind. That's his kindness.
And also about, I hope someday we'll be able to see those napkins in one of the AMTZ museum.
Yes.
And as we move to the second last chapter which you have written.
If I can interrupt,
yeah, sure.
It's not mentioned in the book, but you mentioned the word museum.
Yeah.
Now AMTZ started with 10,001 rupees. There was no scheme in Government of India to fund AMTZ. 10,000 rupees was given by state government. 1 rupee was added by me. Me and Dr. Poonamji, we had SBI branch manager sitting in one of the offices, opening the bank account for us. I still remember the day. And since there was no scheme, I had to run with literally an application form from ministry to ministry, tapping in the money which helped me create this infrastructure. Now, in one such meetings, we realized that there is a scheme for museums in the Ministry of Culture. Now, the only culture which applies to medical technology is sample culture. Either it is blood culture or urine culture or tissue culture. Ministry of Culture does not apply to us. But we have actually applied in a scheme of museums in Ministry of Culture to set up India's first MedTech museum, cataloging and documenting and keeping the first medical device produced by these many, I see Mr. Nerula here, many others like him. They would have produced medical technology which is mesmerizing 40 years ago and we have forgotten. And to document and give credit to all this, we are now setting up India's first MedTech museum, funded by Ministry of Culture. Because you mentioned museum, I am mentioning this. There is only one museum globally on medical products, that is Louis Pasteur Museum in Paris. And the second global museum on medical technology, on health product, will be in AMTZ in Visakhapatnam.
Congratulations. I think over a period of next couple of years, the list is going to become endless, and you may need at least a couple of more books now. So moving on to the next chapter, as I said, why this is very important for all of us to really recognize his personality. Though he mentions about one of the meetings, which was the WHO Global Forum, but it just all of us, while we were and especially the ones who have gone through formal MBAs or management courses, sometimes Dr. Sharma, we say that a good strategy poorly executed is equivalent to a bad strategy. A very average strategy, very well executed, ends up being a great strategy. And also sometimes they say that the leaders don't do extraordinary things. They do ordinary things in an extraordinary way. And when I was going through this chapter, I was kind of diagnosing and also, in a way, discovering you. And the reason is that while he was building up the facility, it was not just about these institutions, but also the time it takes to build up these institutions. So here he mentions about one meeting. I read the excerpt here that on 5th September 2018, we received formal communications from Ministry of Health and Family Welfare that the 4th WHO Global Forum would be hosted in Vizag from 13 to 15 December 2018. So I just want you guys to focus. 5th September 2018, and he's talking about 13 to 15 December 2018. We did not know whether to clap our hands or to clasp our jaws. Vizag, yes, great. Where is the Vizag? Would we have host? We did not know. Every Sunday after 5 September, my team and I went around the city looking for all the available convention centers, and the requirement was unique. The Global Forum needed at least 7 halls, one among them for a plenary session. Therefore, it needed to be large enough to accommodate over 2,000 people. And then you write that on 27th September, this is exactly 15 days after you got the intimation, with the available machinery, materials, and as many construction workers as we could mobilize, we laid the foundation of perhaps the world's fastest built convention center. It was monumental structure that was proposed to have 7 conference halls with a total capacity of hosting 2,500 people at any given point of time. And then, and while I was reading this, I thought I could not believe it at the end when I read this paragraph. On one side, the AMTZ was being set up at a place where that was unused, thinly spread forest area. The area didn't even have a pin code up till that time. And what happened finally, for all of you to know, finally the date of 13th December 2018 arrived. Thousands of cars and buses brought state and central government guest speakers, delegates, and UN officials into the MedTech city, built in just 342 days to participate in global gathering being hosted in a convention center unimaginable that was built in just 78 days. So first of all, I think he deserves a round of applause. So is this where we decode Dr. Sharma you? Is this something which the crowd should take away today as they go out of this room? 78 days for a convention center and 342 days for a MedTech park?
All I would say is, if there is one thing that the crowd should take away, or the decoding of this project, is that if you have decided to do something for the country, it is 78 days or 7.8 days. Get it done. There are thousands waiting for you to complete the task so that they can benefit. There are millions of patients waiting to feel comfortable. And there are hundreds and thousands of families to be fed by the benefits of the work. Now, if you look at this hotel, it is such a beautiful hotel. But if you were to tell the hotel management that we will have 1,500 people in one hall, 250 people each in 2 halls, and 50 people in 6 halls or 4 halls, even this hotel will tell you, sorry, we don't have that much space. That's the kind of infrastructure we have in India. Most cities do not have, barring few, large convention centers to have multiple sessions. So from Armed Forces Convention Center to a hotel, we went around everywhere in the city and we didn't have it. So what should we do? And therefore, I realized that I have already decided the drawings of 2 1-acre factory. These are next to each other. And if these 2 factories, the drawings alone, which would have taken about 3.5 months of work, and the concrete foundations that have already been laid for a certain weight load, on the top of the ground can be converted into convention center halls. With a facade of Dr. Kalam, we would have saved 3.5 months. And I think that point, we realized that we can do it ourselves rather than banking on others. So what we simply did is that we took the drawings, foundations, footings, which were already done, of 2 45,000 square feet layouts, converted a convention center out of it in 78 days. Of course, all those 78 days, our meetings used to be held on the sand or the concrete or the cement which was lying there. At one place, I have written carrying heart attack tablets in my bag, in my coat pocket. That's true, by the way. My food used to come in the night at sight. where we would have with the construction workers. And the air conditioning and all that was a huge affair. In fact, we were working madly at such a pace that, on the 12th, on the 10th December night, the 13th December, the inauguration was done. WHO Global Forum was held. This global forum, by the way, is the nature of same forum where me and Rajiv Nath ji met. And here is a GICC huge Geneva Convention Center overlooking the United Nations. And we thought if India is hosting, we must build something historic. And on the 12th December night, we realized that we were working at such a pace that while closing the walls, while building the convention center, a scissor lift had, by accident, because it was being used inside, had been left inside. Now the walls have been made. We did not know how to take out that scissor lift crane because people will be sitting there. And the scissor lift crane was trapped. We had to literally unscrew the crane to take it out in the parts. That's the pace at which we were working. But again, it's the best wishes of people. We had lovely board of directors, Sudhanshu Pandeyji from Government of India. We had Vivek Sehgalji from Delhi. All of us, we used to literally meet in containers. Now, this was an organization where board of directors didn't mind meeting on a bunch of sand, cement, going around a site at construction, meeting in containers. And I think that's the spirit of familyhood. That is the spirit of doing something. When you have decided you are not doing it for yourself, you are not doing it for your family, you are doing it for the country, where patients are looking forward to having such an infrastructure because it will produce products that will change the lives of people.
Very well, sir. Very well, sir. And also, I think I wouldn't say that this was anticipated, but you were so timely for the nation that, and then when you write in your 7th chapter, Made in Lockdown, that is the real gist of the whole story. And when COVID struck India, and you see a lot of, especially for us, medical device industry, we saw a lot of multinationals running away, and they getting advisory from their parents in US that the plants need to be shut, the sales and the marketing people should not go out. So on one side, while we were having our own role to play, I think it's incredible for the role which AMTZ played. And it was a 2-year-old baby at that time, So you write here that you adopted a strategy while you were contacted by Ministry of Health, Ministry of Pharmaceuticals. You adopted a strategy which was called the command strategy. When I read the word command strategy, it looks to me like a war cry. And this command stood for COVID-19 MedTech manufacturing and development. And it had 3 distinct focal points: encouraging startups and innovators that have taken support from DBT and BIRAC for medical technology projects that could support the COVID-19 response. Many medical device manufacturers who may have the potential to make critical equipments like ventilators and diagnostic kits, thermal scanners, or medical textiles to rapidly scale up their manufacturing. And third, which was also important, was drafting of appropriate standards and safety norms, validation protocols for these medical technologies such as ventilators, N95 masks, and other equipment. So, Dr. Sharma, you ended up giving India at a crucial time RT-PCR kits, PPE kits, ventilators, oxygen concentrators at a setup which was 2 years old. So tell us those times, tell us the journey, and anything which was like for you a major learning and for us a guiding light to begin.
So again, thank you for that question. Now, here is something I would like to share with the audience here. In AMTZ, unlike many organizations, when you enter, you don't find big boards, vision, mission, because these paragraphs are supposed to be imbibed in your employees, in your stakeholders, in your partners, in your factory technicians. Nobody reads these paragraphs and comes to office. Nobody. That employee might be dropping his son to a school, or the lady might be doing a grocery shopping or picking up milk from the dairy parlor? How do we, or stuck in a traffic jam on the way to factory? How do we expect our employees to remember these big statements? And therefore, in AMTZ, we follow a simple statement, which is our vision, mission, life, pattern, principle, whatever you call it. Never say no to work. We don't say no to work if the work is asked from us in our sector. Which means, when we were asked to supply, the answer was yes. But we didn't know how to supply. And that's where nature or life helps, because I have also written my chance meeting with Mr. Waghela, my meeting with Mr. Waghela, the Secretary Pharmaceuticals at that time, and his chance mentioned a World Bank interested in us, in supporting innovations and production. And when I went to meet in the Ministry of Finance, the official, my extremely chance meeting with the head of the World Bank and the head of the Asian Development Bank sitting right there. That's how money came in to support manufacturing. Now, we also in AMTZ don't have one thing besides having many of the things in our offices, and many of you who have visited AMTZ would know this. We don't keep a clock in our office. There is no clock hanging on the wall. The job starts, we go back home, and the job is done for the day. Not when the clock tells us to go. And therefore, when we got a glimpse of a support that we can expect from the World Bank through the Department of Biotechnology, we quickly reached out to our manufacturing partners. They, like us, very truthful, very passionately, if they know they can do it, if they know how to do it, a medical product, they will tell you yes. When they don't know, when they tell you they don't know what that product means, they will tell you that they don't know, but they will never tell you that they cannot do it. I have many friends here who actually didn't know many things about the product, but they put in their best time, risk their capital, put in their best teams, put in their best networks across the globe to pick up the raw materials and delivered what you mentioned. So AMTZ delivered these products as a family because we took a commitment to deliver, we worked hard to achieve it. But one lesson which I think is worth sharing within the policymakers, within the manufacturers, within the investor, is that production is not just about production. You will be challenged for standards, you will be challenged for certifications, you will be challenged on the wrong clinical protocols, asking you to fulfill it, to reject you. And if you were to survive all this, there would be a working capital crash crunch always on the manufacturers. And therefore, while we build products, we must build standards that are truly international. We did that even for MRI. The BIS standards for MRI was architected by us. The BIS standards of ventilators were architected by us. Today, those standards are published documents, which means the labs can use those documents to certify the product. We are still not, as a country, completely there when it comes to clinical validation protocols. Some say a ventilator should be tested for 10 days, some say it should be tested for 2 days. And in between these 2 days and 10 days, there might be an entire story which we don't know about. And therefore, as a team, as a country, as colleagues, as family members, producers, manufacturers, we must invest time and money in jointly writing these protocols. For example, AAMI, the Association for Advancement of Medical Instrumentation in the US, writes these protocols for the industry, and they are recognized by the government. Then why can we not write clinical protocols, submit it to the concerned authorities in, say, ICMR or DHR, and get country to recognize it? Because unless we produce these knowledge documents, our production alone may not be sufficient. And that's where we designed command strategy, where during COVID, and in fact, most of our colleagues never even took 30 minutes of time off. Nobody took leave. We didn't stop for an hour. We not only produced, we not only managed to the best possible extent the supply chain, we also created knowledge documents that don't let us down. I'll give you one simple example and conclude there. I have written this in the book. We were desperately looking for sensors. There were many companies which were arm twisting us. In desperation, we looked out to US. Through the good offices, we found Amphenol to supply us something very small, IR sensors used for thermal cameras and temperature measuring devices. Today, Amphenol has a temperature sensing facility at AMTZ. And therefore, if we are capturing production as well as creating knowledge, more often than not, you will have friends out there in the world who will love to partner with you.
And also at times, and this is I was just trying to find out, and I thought you probably may not mention about it in the book, but I'm glad I found that one paragraph. That when a car travels at the speed of 60, the chances of having an accident is less. But when you travel at the speed of 120, you are bound to meet roadblocks. And this is where you say that just like a whirlpool that has unlimited capacity to absorb, the AMTZ, along with its partner company, absorbed a lot of undue rejection, vested interest, concocted reports, untrue criticism, and cynical opinions in the larger interest of the nation as well as for the patient care. And then you mentioned about some reporter who was trying to do all this, but this kind of project, this kind of pace, and that too, government being one of the partners here. I mean, this will naturally have, and we all know about changes of political regimes, new chief ministers coming and they following a new set of processes. So under all this and being government as one of your partners, while you do achieve all this, how do you overcome this cynicism, this jealousy, these roadblocks, bureaucracy? So what is the mantra for that?
So I'm yet to discover that mantra, because if I knew it, I wouldn't have faced it. So, but I think looking back, what I can see is that these changes sometimes, and I can always wish they don't have a negative impact on us. But if they do, I think one of the things that stands with you is your credibility of being honest, particularly within government, also in private sector. Despite many opinions, I think broadly, if the right people understand that your efforts are done honestly and done in the honest earnestness, then it helps you tremendously. The second is patience. Patients come with a lot of pain. Not a great lot of that pain is not described in the book, because if I expect AMTZ to be a whirlpool which can absorb, I should be also like a whirlpool that can absorb, and hence it's not right for me to reflect all that in the book. But I think the patience that comes with pain eventually gives you to some extent the energy and the wherewithal to absorb whatever is not pleasant for something which is extremely pleasant and beneficial to others. And I think if there is one mantra that binds us all is that patience. Even this industry is waiting to shine for 40 years. This industry has had leaders, entrepreneurs that have actually put in their blood and sweat. But we are waiting to shine as a family. We are waiting to shine as a vertical. And I think that moment has now come. I truly see what we started in 2012 in NHSRC, the MedTech department that we created. Today is 2022. It would be 10 years that I built the department in NHSRC, which was the first institutional representation of medical technology in the government of India. Today, in this year, it would be 10 years. And I think today we can say we are looking at a bright future. Because today we are together, today we know our power, today people recognize our value, today we are able to answer a lot of roadblocks, today we are able to answer some of the infrastructural gaps we had. And I think this is the eureka moment for MedTech in India.
Exactly, and I think this is where you describe at the end. This is also my last question. If medical equipment made in lockdown was the eureka moment of the Indian medtech sector, it has for posterity instilled progress and most importantly confidence in the enterprising attitude of those who see their passion and commitment to research and the production of medical equipment. The AMTZ, an established medical technology manufacturing ecosystem, has all it would need to make it happen and rose to the occasion. The common scientific facilities, the common manufacturing facilities, including specialized laboratories, warehousing, and testing center that had already existed on the campus, were an added advantage for the mission to which the AMTZ was committed. So, my final question, and this is that a more a philosophical question, that generally people write their our books like this when the game is over and they become a coach or a commentator. You are playing the game right now, and when you commit yourself to philosophies, to a journey, and write them down, you yourself get bound by it. So moving on from here, when you see the mirror, the one part is, of course, consolidating AMTZ further, making it big. But what is the next big thing Dr. Jitendra Sharma right now is working on? And every time he sits in the aircraft, when your bag is locked, what do you write on the napkins nowadays?
Right. So this is also good news for all of us. The next line of MedTech products would be innovations. For innovations, you need somebody extremely credible to back you. Because innovation means there is no precedence. Innovation means you are doing something new. And when you are doing something new, you can fail. Somebody should be able to forgive you. You may pass with lesser grade and somebody should be able to encourage you. And while doing innovative technologies and innovative work, if you succeed with flying colors, there should be somebody to pat you. Whether we have that as individuals or not, as a segment we need something. The WHO headquarters in Geneva has a Department of Innovations. Till today, WHO has not recognized anyone in the world as their collaborating center for WHO on innovations. No one. We became the first center as Kalam Institute to become the WHO collaborating center for innovations. Globally. Not MIT, not Stanford, not Cambridge, not Oxford, not Asian Institute of Technology. Kalam Institute, in the name and honor of Dr. Kalam, became the first WHO collaborating center on innovations. That innovation center is getting ready. It's a 150-day project, 29 days to go. We are building a 5-story glass pyramid as a building. It would be world's largest glass pyramid ever built to house the WHO center. The BRICS Business Council, I have written that also in the book. BRICS Business Council, which is chaired by the 5 prime ministers of BRICS countries. We have a BRICS Manufacturing Working Group. There are 5 members from each country. From India, there are 5 members too. Tata, Birla, Mahindra, Apollo Tyres, all of them at least 50-year-old institutions, and AMTZ, 3 months young institution. As member of the BRICS Manufacturing Working Group, we propose to set up the BRICS Center of Excellence for MedTech for all BRICS countries. Even that is approved a month ago by the BRICS Council. Both the BRICS Center and the WHO Center will be ready for inauguration on the 7th April World Health Day this year, 29 days from today. March is 31 days, so you will have 29 days, 6 more days in April. All of you are cordially invited on 7th April to AMTZ to witness the inauguration of the WHO Center of Innovation, the first in the world, and the BRICS Center for MedTech. So I think these 2 things are new for us as a country, for AMTZ as an institution. And what's there right in front of me is to make sure that now AMTZ and Kalam Institute, with all of you as family members, wherever you are in the country, whichever part of the country you work, together as WHO Center for Innovations and BRICS Center, take India to the global stage of MedTech. Establish India as a global supplier of innovation. Make India as the fulcrum of MedTech in the world, so that not only we produce what the world is producing and supply to places that still don't have it. By the way, cancer, which requires linear accelerator for radiotherapy, there are only 2 companies in the world that make a linear accelerator. 34 countries in the world don't have a single linear accelerator till today to take care of their cancer patients. India should be an answer to that. For that, this WHO Center on Innovation and the BRICS Center should help all of us make India a true leader in medical technology.
And before I end, I think a lot of you have got the answer when I said the question to begin with, that why did Translumina decide to go to AMTZ and not have the plot adjacent? So everyone has the answer. I think we are extremely proud for you, Dr. Sharma, whatever achievements you have done, and the nation, the industry, the patients. I think all of them, I think in the coming years, will enjoy the fruits of the hard work which you have done right now, and it will be not only the Eureka moment for AMTs, and I said it's a moment of awakening also from the medical device sector, that from here on, as the things become easy, that's the reason, Mr. Gadkari, if you would have been here, the way he's working on infrastructure and you are working on the medical device technologies, a lot of international partnerships are also on the way. But a couple of things on your personal side. Do you carry the same personality home?
I wouldn't say that. At home. I'm more a listener of Saregama Karma. While having my dinner at 10 o'clock in the night, generally, I am back from office by 9:30.
And what are your hobbies?
My hobby is reading books. So I had a book signing ceremony in 3 bookshops arranged by Rupa Publications.
Okay.
And in all the 3 bookshops, I purchased more books.
Okay.
So reading books, of course, playing cricket as an Indian, that's our second religion. And plants, these are my hobbies. But I think...
do you watch movies?
Oh, yes. And that is why the first name, the name of the first chapter is Amar Akbar Anthony.
Yeah.
I do like movies, and Field of Dreams, for example, is a movie all of us should see and get inspired. You mentioned Rocket Boys. I think it was launched on 4th of Feb. It was a Sunday, and all 8 episodes I watched in that Sunday. Thankfully, it was a Sunday. So I do watch a lot of movies when I get time.
And who is your current favorite actress from the current crop of heroines?
I don't know their names.
Yeah?
I have no idea of the names.
Because my subsequent question was finding that girl. They say for every successful man. So, beyond the wife, who is that girl who is responsible for your success?
So that's a very tricky question, and this program is live, so you are putting me in risk. But my wife is Deepti. She is mentioned in the book.
Okay.
But in the book, I would be failing if I don't mention that this book is dedicated to Dr. A.N. Safaya and Dr. M.R. Patel. We must never forget our teachers. Dr. Safaya was the medical superintendent of AIMS for 20 years till 1991. I am simply privileged to have such a legend as my first boss in Guru. In Delhi, you would see ambulance, CATS, CATS. Anybody knows the full name? Absolutely. Centralized Accident and Trauma Services. This scheme was made by Dr. Safaya in 1980s. The trauma centers and many of the institutions were built by him. A person who truly taught me, Dr. Mahendra Patel, M.R. Patel, who is a legend in public health. Both of them are no more. And I think I carry their love, affection, and teachings. This book is dedicated to them. This book has also documented and acknowledged a lot of people. If you see a person, Chinna, who passed away due to a heart attack, he was my driver. He is mentioned in this book because all the guests who would come to AMTZ in the jungle, he would carry coffee for them from the jungle, from somewhere I don't know. Lot of construction workers, women workers who used to wear shirt and carry cement or sand on vessels on their head. They are all now our housekeeping staff. One such staff, Devi, she now drives electric scooty. She is acknowledged in the book. Legends, entrepreneurs who have made India proud in MedTech are mentioned in the book. Our friends who came from nowhere. When we started producing oxygen concentrator, we needed a mold. We needed a cabinet. We didn't know from where to get it because it takes 6 weeks to make a mold. We reached out to Hindware because Mr. Somani from whom I got inspiration to set up the Indian Biomedical Skill Council, because he led Indian Plumbing Skill Council of all things, from his book, Bringing in the Rainbow, beautiful book by Mr. Somani. I read it, got inspired, set up the Indian Biomedical Skill Council, went and met him. He is almost in his late 80s. He was so blessingful. And then we realized, while producing oxygen concentrators, 2 years after setting up the Indian Biomedical Skill Council, taking inspiration from him, we realized that oxygen concentrator in the initial phases can actually need not wait for 6 weeks to reach the patients if somebody can give us the outer cabinet. What fit in? Hindware air cooler. We reached out to Mr. Vikas Manchanda, who is sitting here, acknowledged in the book. He supplied us the external cabinet of Hindware water air coolers, and the entire inside was oxygen concentrator. So this book is a dedication to all the people from all walks of life who have actually come up to help India be strong, to save patients' lives, to play a part in India's MedTech journey, including the teachers, including my Guru Shri Sai Babaji, including all the colleagues, board of directors, Sudhanshu Panji, Sudhanshu Pandoji, Pundam Malkondayaji, Vivek Segalji, all the wonderful people who have actually helped us create AMTZ. So AMTZ is now a national treasure. It's a place where international community looks up to. And we all must work together to make AMTZ proud by making India proud in MedTech.
Yeah, thank you. Now, before I end, if there are any audience questions, we can take anybody. We know we have covered quite a lot. Yeah, please. Yeah.
So how the finances were met?
It was met by the proposals we put forward to various departments of Government of India under various schemes, pooling in money to build 1 labs, and the common infrastructure, the roads, etc., provided by the state government's finances. And it is a consolidation of those finances that helped build AMTZ. Nevertheless, finances were also earned through the technology transfers we did as Kalam Institute, through the lease that we earned from the factories and so on. But broadly, and this is also a good principle. Money is never the only problem. The problem is right plan, right interest. And as long as right commitment is there, money comes in. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, my name is LB Gautam. I'm from Translumina Therapeutics Limited. So I wanted to ask one simple question from Dr. Jitendra Sharma. What inspired you to write this book? And can you suggest Ministry of Education also to incorporate something in educational chapters also in 10th or 9th about MTZ so that the students are inspired from day one? Thank you.
Now that's a very, very good idea. So actually, India's first MedTech zone is now a multiple choice question. I recently realized I think in a GK exam for students. We can certainly endeavor to ask the education portfolio to see if this can be at least a case study. What inspired me to write the book is simply the fact, and lot of people contribute in very meaningful way. That documentation is never done because if it is done individually, it becomes too personal. If it is consolidated, its power to influence positively the right minds gets enhanced. And therefore, what inspired me to simply write this book, and thanks to my colleagues like Sishir and many others who have actually helped me collect the photographs and anecdotes and multiple things and helped me write it. What inspired me to write this book is simply the fact that if we can document we achieved it, people will believe it more than telling them we wish to do it. So if you tell somebody you want to cook a lavish meal, some may believe you, some may not. But if you have cooked a meal and you put the recipe there, more often than not, there would be people who will get inspired and copy or would come to you. And therefore, I think our country needs copying good things. Our country needs people who can take a leaf of idea from each other and implement it in their own way, just like I implemented Mr. Somani's idea, who actually has nothing to do with MedTech. He runs handwear, sanitary wear, sanitary commodes, and kitchenware. MedTech has nothing to do with it. But because he wrote a book, I got an idea for Indian Biomedical Skill Council. So if I write a book consolidating my learnings, consolidating our experiences, maybe this book would give birth to 1,000 ideas, and these 1,000 ideas would build 1,000 institutions, 1,000 companies, 1,000 products, and save thousands of lives. That's the simple rationale of writing the book.
So before we conclude, I think on behalf of the Association of Indian Medical Device Industry, Dr. Sharma, you have always remained a very strong proponent of our causes, and we thank you for coming here. And I think one takeaway which I'm taking back today is the power of doing things. Rather than there are you get quite a lot of philosophers around, people who have worked, had great ideas. But unless those ideas are put into the practice, and then taking a clue from that particular paragraph of yours where you said that an announcement was made first that there is a global forum or WHO meeting which is going to happen in 2 months. You accepted it and then you started doing it. So I think taking these challenges and then just doing it, I think this is a great learning personally for me today. So thanks for, and I really feel that these questions were not beyond what you thought. So thanks a lot, and thanks to the audience. So Rimi, over to you again.
Wow, that was like a lot of information and lot to learn in 1 hour session, which is not enough. So now that the best kept secret of India in health tech is being revealed, and we got to know, and we request you to talk about it more and contribute, as he rightly said. And with this thought of Dr. Sharma, that people are waiting, we should move ahead. So I would request Mr. Gurmit Singh Chugh to felicitate Dr. Sharma.